Do you want to know how to get your background to go from looking like this to this? Well, in this video, I'm going to be comparing two LED flashlights, which will allow you to be able to do this in your studio as well. So today I'm going to give a comparison video between the SmallRig RF 20C and the Neewer FL10. Now, these are LED RGB flashlights, which you can have gobo filters on the top of them, which allow you to have different background designs. Now, to my understanding, to be able to do something like this for a long time has been very expensive. You would have to buy a modifier, which would allow you to put the gobo light filters into, which were actually really expensive. Not only that, you would have to buy a light to go with it. However, with these RGB flashlights, you have the different colors, you have the light itself, you have the adapters which come with it, and you have the gobo filters. Now, I was looking for a light like this and I saw these two. I wasn't too sure which one to buy, so I thought I'd do a comparison video for you guys because they look so similar. So which one do you buy? Well, in this video, I'm going to compare 5 different areas to find out which one of these lights come out on top, and I'm going to let you guys know at the end which one I'm going to be sticking with. The first thing to compare is the price. Now, between the two, the Neewer came out as a little bit cheaper, but the price was very marginal between the two. Just about £5 cheaper for the Neewer. You got the same stuff in the boxes between the two of them, so there was no kind of advantage over the price over another one for what you got. The Neewer is the winner in terms of the price. Now, looking at the build quality, both of them are pretty much identical. They seem to have used the same materials. The only difference I would say is in the color. The SmallRig has gone for this more black metallic, whereas the Neewer is this shiny silver. They both take USB-C charging, and they both come with the same 3/4 inch mounting holes. And both of these use the same mechanism to change the field of view of the light. They require you to extend them and to pull them down. However, this is where these two lights massively differ. Now, this might just be the models that I have gotten. This might not be across the board. The Neewer version is very stiff and very difficult to pull up and down, whereas the SmallRig is very easy, very simple, very quick. Looking at some of the videos I've seen online, some people seem to be able to do it much easier, but comparing the two, it is day and night. As I said, both of these provide the exact same filters, and they both come with the same adapter to be able to connect those filters. However, let me just show you. This is something which I actually find a little bit frustrating about both these lights. Now, the modifier is very simple design, very flat packed, and it goes onto the lights fairly simply. You know, it's not too complicated, but at some point I can imagine you might start getting a bit frustrated and fumbling with that. However, the way you would attach the filters isn't really great. I mean, look, you can do it, anyone can do it. You know, you've got a few brain cells, you'll figure it out. But, you know, it's a little bit finicky. And I'm sure there must have been an easier way to design this. I mean, even then it's not now in right, so now I've got to put it back out, put it back in. So, yeah, there you go. I've got it in. But it's a little bit frustrating. I mean, even though it's not even in properly. There you go. Now it's in properly. So it's just not really the best design there. But again, for the price we're paying, comparing this to what else I would have had to pay for a gobo mount with the light, etc., you know, you're looking at up to £300, and this is a tenth of the price. And we'll do the same thing I need for this setup. If you need anything brighter than projecting onto a dark wall, then these aren't going to really do the job. The 10 watts is not powerful enough, but for a setup like this, they're fantastic. Now, one thing I did notice is that the Neewer version seemed to come out hotter when I did the power test and just let them both run. Now, this might have been because I was using the modifier to stand it up, not realizing that it actually does stand up on its own. But I actually do think that this was because the Neewer just generally runs out hotter than the SmallRig. In terms of appearance, I do love the way the SmallRig one looks. I think it will look great in my studio. I think the kind of darker black has that more studio look to it. But I do love the way the SmallRig looks. It reminds me of my MacBook Pro, and it has a more kind of industrial look to it, a more kind of professional look to it, to me personally. And, you know, I'd feel quite comfortable pulling this out on a set. But the only issue I have with this one in terms of its appearance is that for some reason Neewer decided to go with writing Neewer Basics on it, which just doesn't look very professional, and therefore is not something I'd really feel comfortable pulling out on a set anyway because of that. So I do think that in this area, the SmallRig gets the win in terms of its build quality. Now I want to talk to you guys about the functionality. So both of these lights power on in the same way. You push and hold the button on the front, and then you turn it right to then switch it on. These lights have gone for different measurements in terms of how bright and how dark they get. The SmallRig has gone for like 10 stops of adjustment. So, but they're from 0 to the 10% is quite a big jump in brightness. And they've gone with the decision that once you've reached the end, the light then flashes. And once you've reached the highest point, the light then flashes. With the newer version, it's gone for about almost 100 stops of adjustable brightness, and it doesn't flash at either end. And it's actually frustrating because I wish the SmallRig didn't flash because it's only 10 stops, and the SmallRig actually has a little bit of a delay. So if you twist quite fast, it will start flashing before the light has actually reached the brightness you've set it to. Whereas with the newer, you're at about 4 turns, give or take, until you actually get to the lowest and the brightest settings, and it's hard to know if you're there because there's such fine adjustments. So it's kind of not really necessary for the SmallRig, but it would be really necessary for the newer. But I would say in terms of functionality, I would give the win here to newer because it has so many fine adjustments. And though I do like the fact that I can quickly in one turn make an adjustment between the highest point and the lowest point with the SmallRig, with the newer, the finer adjustments just allow for so many more different settings for this to be more practical and to get the exact level of brightness that I would want. So again, the win goes to newer in this category. So now we're going to look at the brightness and colors. Now they were both very close. The differences here are minimal. Both the lights come with 4 different colors: white, yellow, red and blue, though it does say it's orange on the SmallRig, maybe on the newer as well, but I would call it yellow. And both the lights' lowest brightness and maximum brightnesses are pretty much identical, but I would give the win in terms of brightness to newer. And also when looking at the field of view, at the widest end, newer seems to come out on top with a wider spread. Also, the newer comes out a little bit more cooler in color, whereas I would say the SmallRig comes out a little bit more warmer. Let me show you guys how some of the different modifiers look on the background so you can get an idea of how these can look in your studio. Then finally, the last thing I want to compare between the two is the battery life. Now, both these lights performed way better than I thought they were going to, up to about 5 hours. However, the SmallRig outdid the newer quite dramatically by about 2 to 3 hours. However, when charging the lights, the newer charged considerably quicker than the SmallRig. Now both the lights charge by USB-C. Now when both the lights begin to run low on battery, they shine red, they begin to flash red as they're about to run out of battery, and then they just turn off. Either way, when it comes to battery life, I will give the win to SmallRig because it massively outperformed in terms of how long this light went on for. I do recognize the light is brighter with the newer. I recognize that it fills up more space. However, in terms of battery life, this lasted much longer. Yes, it took much longer to charge. So if you're someone who needs to work quite quickly, needs to be able to charge quite quickly, then I would go for the newer. But if you need something that's just going to be reliable and last for a long time, then I'd go for the SmallRig. But for me, in this, I give the win to SmallRig. So there you have it, guys. With either one of these lights, you are not going to go wrong. They're both fantastic. But I think, as many of these reviewers say, it really does just depend on what you're looking for and your situation. I think for me personally, I'm going to go for the SmallRig. However, if I change my mind, I'm going to put this in the edit and you'll see that right now because I'm still a little bit on the fence. I do like the form factor of the newer, but I cannot overcome the ease of the SmallRig to go from wide to small compared to the Neewer. Because if I have this mounted, I'm not going to be able to make this adjustment. This isn't going to be possible. I'm not going to be able to do that with it on the small little magic arm. But it is a challenging decision because I think I preferred the colors from the Neewer, and I think I preferred the brightness from the Neewer and the finer adjustments. So I think I'm going to go with the SmallRig. I also think it looks perhaps a little bit more professional in the sense that it does have SmallRig written there as opposed to Neewer Basics. So again, here is what it looks like. You know, here is what it looks like with different colors. I mean, I think this looks great. You know, it makes such a difference. It means with literally a £35 flashlight, you're going to be able to create multiple different backgrounds with multiple different colors in your setup, in your studio, and just be able to make each video look a little bit different or to build your own style. So I think this is a worthwhile investment for me with the setup that I have. But let me know what you guys think. If you found this video useful, please do share in the comments below. Give me a like, do subscribe. If you're into Panasonic cameras, then you're in the right place. If anyone's interested, I'm filming right now with the S52X with a 50mm lens, and I'm filming with the S5 with the Tamron 35 to 150mm over here, set to 100mm. I'm actually filming as well in the Rec 709 profile, which I think looks quite nice.